Hi, I'm Desiree Fultz. Welcome to Psychic Insights Astrology, where we explore all things metaphysical. And for this series, we will be talking about 13 sign sidereal astrology. There's a lot of different kinds of astrology out there. We're going to specifically talk about 13 sign sidereal astrology. For those of you that would like to follow along with this series, you can get my book, Gate and Key, Sidereal 13 Sign Astrology on Amazon.com or pi-astro.com. The links are in the description. This is the first video in a series which you can access for free. I'm making these videos available to the public. A lot of people have requested videos, and I don't have a lot of time to spend with individual clients because I'm very busy and have a lot of projects. So let's begin. There's a lot of different kinds of astrology in the world, so what should you study? Depends on your interest, really. There's Chinese astrology, Hindu astrology, Vedic astrology, Greek Roman astrology, Western astrology, tropical, sidereal. For the purposes of easy conversion, most of the people watching this video are probably familiar with tropical astrology, which is what we use here in the United States, in the Western world. It was actually dated back to the Greco-Roman period, about 2,000 years ago. When they developed their system, they aligned it with the seasons. And the seasons are very important, especially if you're using astrology for your agriculture, which a lot of cultures did. But the problem with that is 2,000 years have passed. I mean, just like the Nile has traveled, time has passed, the world has shifted, the planets have moved. Nothing sits still. We don't sit still, the planets don't sit still because we're all one body. So 2,000 years have passed, and as the world has turned and the universe has spiraled into the galaxy, we have a shift in the equinoxes. It's called the precession of the equinoxes. And as the world turns, it doesn't turn straight, it wobbles back and forth like a top. So as that wobble happens over a slow period, the Earth itself goes through cycles and seasons. It creates almost like a sine wave of DNA. And if you look at that sine wave of DNA and how it connects to how we all interact, we really are one body. As above, so below. We are the microcosm and the macrocosm, together one universe, or one song, living in harmony. When there's dissonance, it's usually when we have planets that clash with one another, and when there's harmony, it's agreeable planets that are helping us out. And we all interact with one another as people and have different personalities. Astrology is basically a metaphysical way or metaphysical science of explaining why we behave the way we do and why there's certain drives and desires in each person at the individual level, and why even entire generations of people are moved by certain movements. All of this will be explained in astrology in these videos as you continue to watch this series. We were talking about tropical astrology. As the 2,000 years have passed and that Earth has wobbled back and forth, about 23.4 negative degrees has shifted, and the seasons are no longer accurately aligned to first degrees Aries as it was established by the Greco-Roman cultures. It was an extremely patriarchal culture, and at those times, anything matriarchal or anything that empowered the goddess or the feminine was totally wiped out. The entire histories were destroyed. Egypt was a very egalitarian society, for example. They even had their own astrology. There's Egyptian astrology. A lot of different types of astrology like interlace with one another, and they all correspond, but there's slight differences in the ecliptics that they use. So what is an ecliptic? An ecliptic is actually the path that the sun appears to move when we're actually moving around the sun. But as we move and rotate around the sun, and as the Earth turns, we see a specific series of constellations, and the sun sitting in those constellations as we move around one another. And so we have the precession, the wobbling in a slow precession, and the equinoxes has shifted. So in sidereal astrology, it's based off of actual astronomy. The difference between astrology and astronomy is that astronomy is quite literally the study of the stars. Astrology is the interpretation of the study of those stars. And so when we're interpreting or trying to understand how the larger body moves with the smaller body, that is quite literally astrology, the study of those movements, the interpretation of those energies as they clash and mingle. So in sidereal astrology, we're looking at where is the sun or the planet or the moon, whatever we're looking at, sitting in relation to us? Because we are in relation to that larger body. How does it speak to us? How do our bodies communicate with those things? For example, our bodies are made of the stars. You are stars. Because this earth is made of the seeded debris that have come from all the planets from all over the galaxy and seeded this earth. And you're made of that dust. And you raised up and you die and go back to that dust. So it makes sense, even in quantum physics and through laws of resonance, that if one thing vibrates, another thing like it also vibrates. So if the larger body vibrates, you're the smaller body and we vibrate together. We do have free will and agency. So of course the explorative nature of astrology and studying these stars and the movements of the bodies of heaven that move us, we actually have the power to manipulate those energies and to coexist with them, to co-create with them. So that's what we're going to be exploring as we look through 13 signs sidereal astrology. Our position on the planet, looking directly at the moon, for example, what constellation is sitting behind it right now from our view, that is what we're going to be measuring through sidereal astrology. The mystery is the 12 sign the 12 sign system that we get from the Greco-Roman period has 12 signs, but we have a lunar calendar in addition to a solar calendar. So what you're looking at in the patriarchal or Western astrology is a division or a strengthening of the patriarchal energies and a removal of that 13th month or 13th moon. You actually have 13 moons almost every year. You have 12 and a half moons. So there's this 2-week period in between the year that it disappeared in the 12 sign astrology. The sun or the ecliptic, the sun actually appears to pass through 13 signs, not 12. For 18 days, the sun appears to be in Ophiuchus. It sits just between Sagittarius and Scorpio. And right there between the two creates what I call the passageway or the gateway of life and death. We'll talk a lot about Ophiuchus. A lot of you have never heard of it before. There's a lot of controversy around it. It was only recently rediscovered. So we're going to look at these energies and how they might affect you. There's a lot of generational Ophiuchans out here. Many of you watching will have generational planets, and we'll talk about how those generational planets affect entire generations and how they might affect you individually. So the difference between the tropical astrology and the sidereal astrology really boils down to the ecliptic used. Are you ignoring that 13th sign, the constellation that it goes through for 18 days? The sun still passes through it. Why did they ignore it? Why was it removed? Even Ptolemy knew about it. Ophiuchus was recognized. Why was it left out? We'll talk more about that in this series, so stay tuned. If you would like to get a copy of this book so you can follow along in the series and have your own copy for taking notes, the book is called Gate and Key, 13 Signs Sidereal Astrology by Desiree Fultz. That's me. So you can find this on Amazon or at pi-astro.com. The links are in the description. There's going to be a video made for every chapter here where we're going to elaborate, and I'll give you more in the videos than you get in the text here. But this study guide is really vital for learning the system. Just like anything, if you don't learn to actually read the very basics of any system, you're not going to read it. You're not going to be able to use that system to your advantage. So just like the reading, for example, you have to learn the alphabet before you can read. Without learning sentences, you can't read paragraphs. Without reading paragraphs, you can't read entire novels. So you're going to need to sharpen your skills on the very basic information on what the signs and the symbols actually mean, so that the language becomes second nature to you, and you can then begin to use your intuition in reading and using astrology as an intuitive or divination tool. Fumbling your way through a book, reading every syllable like a 2-year-old would, for example, or a 3-year-old, they're only going to catch like 5%. The more you learn and apply these symbols or commit them to memory, the better you're going to be able to use astrology as an intuitive tool. If you feel that any of these presentations have added value to your life and you would like to support the show, just click on the links in the description. You can find information on where to purchase these materials and to find other study materials. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.